5 questions about Bach's music to the outstanding musician, senior organist of the Church of St. Catherine, Professor Emeritus at the University of Music and Performing Arts Frankfurt, Martin Lücker. Can you name books and authors worth reading to understand how to properly perform Bach's music?
It depends whether you rather refer to how Bach is performed on an organ or on a harpsichord. Those were the two basic instruments at his time. And it's really the question, if you played on the accordion, would you be closer to organ or harpsichord? Because one very important thing is articulation. And for example, articulation in harpsichord and organ is different due to the fact that the sound in harpsichord doesn't last very long. Whereas in organ, of course, the notes can sound as long as you touch the key. Well, there are some books that around Bach that write a lot, for example, on harpsichord playing. And of course, the keyboard instruments basically had been called Clavier with a C. And so Bach's son, Philipp Emanuel, wrote about Versuch, über wahre Art das Clavier zu spielen. And so he refers to harpsichord or a little bit already to clavichord playing. And there are lots of details about articulation in it, about ornamentation, and it is very important to know all this. For example, how that of course legato playing is not the basic kind of touch. It was much more to an articulated playing. And in fact, there is no real organ school of that time, but from many different sources, partly in Germany, a little bit in France, we can extract lots of important details. Maybe there is a book one should read. It is written by the organist Johann Laukvik on historical performance practice on organ. There are many things in it, but of course there is not just one book that tells us everything about Bach playing, because we have to be aware that of course the means of accordion, the acoustical means of, and the means of the instrument accordion are very different from organ and from harpsichord. And so in many cases, one has to think how is a kind of transfer of the Baroque ideas. And the second thing I would say, it is very important in Bach's music, before you talk about how to perform it, to understand the music. To understand that music as a music that stands in a tradition of Baroque composing, and which has, especially Bach, combined all national styles of his time, plus older styles of composition. And of course, what he invented in terms of harmony is the most, let's say, modern or sophisticated harmony. Some of his harmonical experiments have not been redone before 1850. And so it is very important to know about counterpoint, how to compose in counterpoint, about harmony, about this four-part setting of chorales. And in the work sometimes with instrumentalists, I discover that they do not really deal, first of all, with the score, the score of Bach, and try to really recognize the individual of the specific composition. Because, first of all, you have to get an imagination of the individuality of the single composition, and then ask yourself, which means, which tools do I need to make it sound, to perform it.
What should absolutely not be done when performing Bach's music?
Well, what never should be done in the performance of any music is that the performer is before the music. The first thing has to be the music. And we as performers have to be very much devoted to the music, very serious. There is nothing more specific I would like to say. All you do has to be very profound to bring out the, let's say, contents of the music, its individuality. Music is not a surface for ourselves to produce whatever. And I think, and especially, it is not a table to put on our emotions. Because, of course, we need our emotions to fulfill the music. I think my personal emotions are totally without any meaning. Yeah, I always feel devoted to the music, and that's what you should do. And if you don't do it, you shouldn't perform.
Books about symbolism in Baroque music are very popular. When you play Bach, how much do you take symbolism into account?
Well, symbolism, rhetoric, and all this in Bach's music. This is a very wide field. This is a wide field of speculation. And so first of all, what we have to know is, of course, numbers play a very important role in Bach's thinking, and of course, in the thinking of the time in general. I would like to compare it from astrology to astronomy. Both astronomy and astrology deal with the movement of planets, of stars, and of course these are things to measure, but astronomy just measures it. Astrology interprets it. And so, considering that at Bach's time, the first book in school with which the children dealt was the Bible. And of course, numbers in the Bible, you find a lot of them. They are always joined to a specific meaning. Let me just give you some examples. For example, 12. We have lots of 12. We have the 12 tribes of Israel. Of course, we have the 12 months anyway. We have the 12 disciples, Jünger, of Jesus. And of course, this does not mean literally 12 necessary, but 12 always is the number of the cycle. And so 12 means all. And there are lots of numbers in the Bible, like 40, and Bach knew a lot about that because he owned a Bible where these things were discussed, and so we find many numbers, but this is a very clear, let's say, knowledge, and the mathematical operations with those are rather simple. Sometimes we find articles by people that go into complicated mathematical operations like doubling and so and so. Now, it's the numbers have a specific meaning, and of course the other thing was musical rhetoric. This is on one hand a specific figurations that refer to some, for example, let me give you an example. One means tmesis. Tmesis is Greek and means cutting into parts. And there's a piece by Telemann, for example, where it said the text of Einer says tear away. Yeah? And so he writes donken, donken, donken. And this, of course, then is a tmesis, between the accords. And that's in many cases what they did. They had a text and some images in the text or some contents referred to special things. For example, a group of 5 of ascending notes was called an anabasis, which is Greek and means climbing up, or katabasis, falling down. But this, of course, is just a description. It is not a symbol. Yeah, and so the borderline between over-interpreting all this is very dangerous. I'm not too fond of course, it's very clear, for example, if Bach refers, if a sequence of 4 notes, for example, D, B, E, D. These 4 notes they form a cross. And in many cases, like in the chorale with Da Jesus an dem Kreuze stund, when Jesus was standing at the cross, he marks the cross. But it is just a cross. You know, it's nothing more or nothing less. What's much more important, for example, are symmetries in Bach's works, or let me say, you know, Bach wrote the 4 cycles of the 4 books of Klavierübung from 1730 on. And the first is the 6 partitas, the second one is Italian Concert and French Overture, and the third one is Klavierübung, dritter Teil, third part, for the organ. Traditionally, it had the name organ mass because it contains the prelude and fugue in E flat major, then a big setting of choral preludes, these range for duets, 2-part compositions, and one was always thinking about lots of things. First of all, we have to say it has to do with Trinity. The number 3, Holy Trinity, is very important, and so it is 27 pieces, and of course 27 is 3 times 3 times 3. And like in all 4 parts of Klavierübung, at the middle, at the symmetrical axis, there is a French overture. And lots of these things, but it is more a construction which, as such, does not have a symbolic meaning, but it refers to what the Book of Solomon says. Everything is alle Dinge sind nach Maß und Gewicht geordnet. In the cosmos, all things are in an order of weight and measure. And so we have these enormous organization of measures of stuff, but it really, in fact, you know, a symbol, of course, is an item behind which there is a large, let's say, idea or picture or what. Be very careful with symbols, and really, first of all, study the text, study the music, study the harmonies, and see what happens. Do not say, well, first thing, this piece is, let's say, refers to resurrection or so, without even looking on it. Because then, very often, you just transport your personal feelings and ideas into the music, and it does not really come out of the music. I would not pay too much attention to that. It is much more important to know that, of course, for Bach, what he wrote was Soli Deo Gloria, just to the glory of God. And so, that is what you find in the music, or what the music is done for. But of course, for God, just the best is good enough. And so it was just Bach's intention to be the best craftsman, the best composer, not to propose himself to the world, but he just did it in responsibility to God. And that's the important thing we always have to know about Bach.
What is the most important aspect of performing Bach's music?
Most important is always to be aware that if we play Bach's music, this is one of the most precious things a human being ever produced in culture and in life. And so it is such a privilege to be allowed to perform this and to bring this to people. It's a total joy. And I'm dealing with this music, let's say for about I would say for about 60 years. I started playing the organ at 11. And no matter which pieces, whether the large pieces or these incredible small choral preludes and Orgelbüchlein, I played them for years. I have been teaching them, and it's always a miracle for me how a person can do that. And what is very important, nearly without sketches. For example, in Beethoven, we have many sketches of his compositions where we see, first of all, he did a first sketch and how step by step it became more what it was in the end. But in Bach, there are no sketches. His first biographer said, schrieb nach langem Nachsinnen. He wrote after long thinking and reflecting. It is absolutely incredible. For example, these let's say, extremely complicated and difficult compository questions, which he imposed himself and found a solution. There was nobody to request certain canons or fugues or whatsoever from him. It was just his personal will to accomplish his abilities to the utmost. And for example, in works like Vollkommene's Clavier or whatever, you'll find miracles of compositoric skills, of ideas, sometimes of you know, I made a version of the Art of Fugue for a big brass ensemble. And so I kind of copied by hand, of course, the entire the score into my score, and then later arranged it. And for example, copying by hand a piece by Bach, and of course, by my education, I know how to about the technique of fugues. And when you see how he gets himself into such tricky situations, you yourself would never find a solution how to get out of all this. And with an elegance and with an ease, he finds a solution. It is always a miracle, and that's important for Bach. It's always discovering the miracle. And it's not anything to produce ourselves, just the miracle of this music.
How do you choose the right tempo in Bach's music?
Finding the right tempo in Bach's music. First of all, we have to know one thing. Bach and all his contemporaries, they wrote, one professional was writing for another professional. We did not have a situation like today, or let's say from 1800 on, when there was a composer and there was a wide range of, let's say, amateurs. And so if you write for amateurs, it is very important to be very precise in giving a tempo, in giving all the indications with a performer, especially a performer who is not a real professional, needs. But of course, compared to, let's say, even scores of Johannes Brahms or so, Bach's scores do not give many things, many indications. he does not, all right, for example, in terms of tempo, many pieces do not even have a mark of tempo in terms of andante, allegro, or whatsoever. And of course, at Bach's time, they didn't have a metronome and so. And there was something they called tempo ordinario, regular tempo. But one of his, I think it was in the flute school of Johann Quantz, who said it refers to the pulse of a healthy man. Today, we would say it's 72 on the metronome, 72 beats, heartbeats. But this is so far away. What do we know about the physical health of people at Bach's time? And so, finding the tempo, find a tempo where the listener can follow the music. And of course, what is important, for example, is to see in Bach, what is important? Watch the 4/4 or C or the alla breve. And of course, these signs, for example, alla breve will be 2 beats in a bar. C is 4 beats in a bar. 6/8 means 1, 2, 3, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 6. 3/8, 3/8 means 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, so it has the Bach and even in many people, many composers around him. Very important is to see the notation of the bar. Yeah, and that, for example, if there is adagio, but the bar is 4/4. This means adagio referring to 4/4, not to 8/8. Some people then, if it says adagio, it is so slow that you do not really feel the fourth. But it's still there. It depends how much, for example, expression and these meters sometimes are in a kind of contradiction, and you have to find your way. Yeah, I have to say, I think finding a right tempo for a piece is a very complicated process, and has, of course, to do, let's say, for example, in harmony. How often do the harmonies change within a bar? And so, if you hum in music theory, you call it harmonic rhythm. This has to be regarded. It has to be regarded, of course, in other things, for example, which is very important for organists. It has to refer to the reverberation of the church or concert hall. And of course, in large acoustics, like even cathedrals, you have to slow down tempo, and of course, then do more articulation to make things clear. This is a very, very wide field to say. But of course, and what Bach says, you just have to see. In certain ways, grave really means heavy. Adagio does not mean slow. It says adagio means gentle. Lento, of course, means slow. And allegro does not mean fast, but it means in a gay mood. Yeah, so always be aware that in Baroque, what later became more or less a tempo indication was always joined to a certain, let's say, mood. And for example, if you compare it to Mozart, in Mozart, you have, I think, 12 or 16 varieties of allegro when he combines allegro with allegro, allegro non troppo, allegro aperto, allegro assai, and so. But Bach has not gone so far. Of course, with the Vienna classic, music did not turn towards professionals. There were other people performing the music. And from that point on, if you, for example, see the piano sonatas of Haydn, Mozart, and Beethoven, they are full of indications of articulations, of tempo, of dynamic signs. In Bach's time, a professional wrote for professionals, and that said, you know what to do. And what we never should forget, that at Bach's time, improvising music was a much, much larger part in what performance had to do. Playing music by other composers was not the basic business. And for example, Bach himself published these things more as samples for perfect compositions. In the introduction to this third part of Klavierübung, he said, denen Liebhabern, vor allem aber denen Kennern von der gleichen Arbeit gewidmet. He dedicates this to the amateurs, the lovers, which means the non-professionals, but mainly to the Kennern, a connoisseur, to the expert, to the edited musician. And for those, receiving music was not listening to it, it was studying the score, of course playing it, but studying the score, reading the score. Today, we live in a total culture of amateurs, because now, today, always music is written for a public which should have a lot of, on the first view. In Bach's, I think for Bach himself, it was not his basic intention. And so, which says, performance today happens in a totally different setting, by all means. And even, for example, let's say just imagine what is pain. I mean, and the word pain comes in any kind of Baroque text. What is pain for us today, and what is has pain been in Bach's time, where they didn't have any narcosis? The late Bach, you know, he got a surgery on the eyes because of cataracta. This was done without any narcosis or what. It is incredible which pain this must have been. Or let's talk about death. Today, if there is a family and one child dies, it is a catastrophe for the family. If even two childs die, this, in most cases, will destroy a family. What about Bach, who, with his two wives, had 20 children and 6 survived? They had a totally different, let's say, feeling towards pain, death, and whatsoever. And of course, pain, death, even love, for us today are central points of reference between to our emotions. And this is what it is today. It's a totally different world from Bach, and we have to bring his music into this world, which never can be 100% to 100%.
These were answers to questions about Bach from the great organist from Frankfurt, Martin Lücker. You can also write your own questions about Bach, the organ, and music in general. In the near future, we will be recording masterclasses with Martin on performing Bach's organ compositions, so stay tuned for announcements. Thank you all for watching, don't forget to like this video, and see you next time.